Hey, this is Dave. I'm going to get into the pod in a minute here, but I realized as I was going back through what I had just recorded, I realized I said what we need is partisanship politics. I'm an idiot. What we need is bipartisan politics. So when you hear it in the pod, just know that's what I meant. We need bipartisan legislation. We need bipartisan agreements, not partisan. Sorry, everyone. Just wanted to clarify that before you get into the pod. Enjoy the listen, everyone. I'm solo again, and I'm going on some rants. All right, here we go. Dave going solo, second time in 2 weeks. Usually, I didn't think through my morning a whole lot. Annie and I usually record at 5:30. I have a cup of coffee before that. I usually do some exercising. Before that, go for a walk, hit a little gym time. And then, make my coffee and go and record with Andy. And with Andy, the way Andy talks, and we know he loves to talk, a gift of gab, all that other stuff. But I'm able to drink my coffee throughout the time. And if you watch the video version of our podcast, you can see I'm drinking a little bit, right, during that time. I wish it was harder liquor kind of stuff sometimes, but, as it is, it's coffee to get me going in the morning. But now that it's just solo Dave today, I got to go 25, 30 minutes here, and I'm looking at my coffee, and I just can't drink it because it's going to cause that awkward pause, and you're going to think, what's going on with Dave? Is he a little backed up? How's he feeling? Does he got a burp? Has he got a little what's going on there? So I'm just going to try to power through this, get my coffee, or maybe I'll warm it up at the end. I don't really prefer warmed up stuff, but I'll probably have to power through. I may have to have just a whole new cup of coffee in the first place. All right, so let's get going. I got a couple topics I want to go through today because, again, since it's Dave's solo, I get to pick whatever's the top of mind. Usually Andy's giving me and feeding me a bunch of stuff to look through, and I pulled out a couple things Andy sent me the last couple of days, some interesting political stuff. But I want to talk a couple things. I have to start with QBH because she continues to just, every time we say something, she continues to go on top of it. And here we are again. Then I want to talk a little colleges. Andy's going down for his son's graduations. Congratulations. My son will graduate a little bit later in this summer. I want to talk a little bit about college tuition. There's an interesting study that came out about the declining attendance of colleges. So that's going to be something I want to talk about. And then I want to talk a little bit about football, coaches, and how coaching is going. And is there any value in coaching anymore, especially when we have this player empowerment era in a lot of the major sports, when there's so much money into it. Good coaches often get saddled with the bad stuff. And we may wrap up with a little RFK Jr. Trump debate kind of talk. We'll see how the time is going there. I got 25, 30 minutes. We'll try to power through. All right, so let's talk about QBH. So last week we were talking about how she was going to bring this move to vacate. And then we talked then that Trump and some of the others in the party had kind of brought her together and said, hey, don't do this. This is going to be really bad. You need to shut up and sit in the corner. So she put on this, well, I'm going to go talk to the speaker and we're going to work out things and I'm going to give him my list of demands and we'll see where he goes. Well, the list of demands were so fucking stupid that it was, and we talked about this on the pod earlier. So, the belief was that was going to do it, right? That was going to do it. Well, I think what happened was Mike Johnson, for all the right reasons, told her to get the fuck out of his office and said, get your crazy. We're done with it. We're not going to do it anymore. I have the votes. You don't. So she tried to call his bluff and said, I'm going to file a motion to vacate. And you could probably seen this on the news. You've probably seen some clips on social media or wherever. As soon as she brings the move to vacate, there's round boos all around. There's loud vocal disagreement. And then they call the vote. and not surprisingly, it was like 340 to 43 or something like that. It was something stupid. But what a colossal fucking waste of time. And yes, I'm probably gonna swear a little bit more than I am, but I'm in a mood today, everyone, and I'm just super annoyed. So what a colossal waste of time. But I will tell you what I've come away with is maybe some renewed confidence in what the GOP is really trying to do here. And maybe they have turned some of the corner on, are they going to be the govern, or are they going to be able to move to govern? And the way I say that is because afterwards there were representatives on the steps of the Capitol talking about how this is middle school antics, how this is a temper tantrum. And I really applaud them for coming out and saying this, because look, these people continue, QBH, these people, when I refer to, Andy's talked about it. They're looking for the microphone. They're looking to get the attention because the media needs to fill 24 hours of news channels. There's 4 major news channels. Well, actually, there's 3 major news channels, and you got some on the edges, right? They need to fill 24 hours of content. And what better way was when you have some dumbass person getting on there talking just stupid shit. And it even appears like Trump can't contain this. And so where do they go from here? Well, it looks like they're going to go and say, hey, you extremist group, you're going to sit in the side and you're going to shut up and color. We're going to give you our little little things to do here and there, but we're not going to give you any more voice here. It's very similar to what the Democrats did with AOC and her squad. I use those in quotes if I was recording video today. AOC and the squad. There's a lot of talk about how they're just, the Green New Deal and all this other stuff. Well, look, the Democrats realize that's not working for them. And what's happened? Hey, look, they're still elected representatives, and every so often you'll hear something about one of them or one of their kids who got arrested on college campus or whatnot. But they're marginalized, and that's how it should be. When you have 5, representatives and senators, you can't let 1 or 2 people derail your entire agenda. The other stupid shit that QBH, she talked about how Mike Johnson didn't fight for money to go into a border deal. Hey, dumbass, you helped kill that when you didn't want to bring something to the floor, right? QBH, you said you were following the wishes of your dear leader and saying, hey, we don't want border stuff to come to the floor. But you can see how stupid politics is from time. When there was a bipartisan bill to bring about border security, the Republicans are all against it because Trump told them to do it. Well, now they're going to use that same reason to bring Mike Johnson out of office. How dumb are you? And how do we have to keep putting up with this stuff? And look, I hope the good people in the district that she represents decide to take action. There's a pretty... I don't know much about all of the details of the candidate. He's he's a veteran. Hopefully he can build some momentum, some of this stuff. But people like QBH really need to be put in a space where they can't really impact the whole because of their fucking crazy. So that's number one I want to go on. I can imagine where Andy would go with a lot of this stuff, but as he's driving down to his son's graduation, or if he's just hanging around the pool sunning himself, trying to get a new seatbelt tan or forehead tan, whatever he's doing, I'm sure he would have something very similar to say here on that. So we'll stop on that topic. There's a lot of things else where you can go where we're on that, but I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing a corner for the GOP. Because, look, as a country, we need good partisan discussions. We need good partisan relationships so we can get things like our infrastructure bill. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I am going to stick on this for one more minute. We have a lot of problems in this country. And it's far and away beyond just the hot button items of Ukraine, Israel, the border. We have a lot of problems in this country. And I will give President Biden one piece of credit. We have an infrastructure bill that passed earlier this year. The Republicans fought against it, and now they're using the money for it to help their districts and say, look at all the good things I brought you, by the way. But this infrastructure bill is so important because it is going to address so many things of our failing infrastructure. Look, bridges need to be maintained. Tunnels need to be maintained. Roadways need to be maintained. If you cannot keep those things up, the rest of your country is going to crumble. And it's going to impact so much of your commerce. It's going to impact so much of your economy. And I'll give Biden a lot of credit. So we have a lot of things that we need to fix. The only way we do that is through good bipartisan agreements. And that if we're not committed to doing that, putting good bills in, not every bill is going to be perfect. Not everything is going to be fix the majority of people, but we have to make those inroads. Our schools are next, everyone. We really need to start changing what is going on in our school systems. And the answer, everyone, is not I'm going to take my kid to private school. I'm going to take my kid to a charter school. We need to fix our schools that affect the most people and not tie it up with, again, bullshit wokeism kind of stuff or bullshit anti-wokeism kind of stuff. We need to make sure that we're bringing education to our kids at the youngest levels. My wife's a teacher. She's working in some of the worst places, the worst environments, because these kids, their parents aren't coming home at night. They're not getting the support they need because parents may be working 2 or 3 jobs to just maintain their life. They may have a lot of economic issues in some parts of the country where they can't invest in the schools because they're trying to do other things. Look, we have to fix this problem with some of our school system. So that's the other thing that needs to get fixed, and it needs to get fixed relatively soon, because look at the numbers, everyone. It's like our math scores, reading scores, education scores. They're not great, everyone. We may have the best basketball team and we're going to clean up in the Olympics this year. But when it comes to education, guys, we fucking suck. And we need to address that. And it needs to go beyond what books we're putting in the library and all this other stuff. Because we know, all the teachers are being grooming our kids, right? I mean, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so let's move on for some of that stuff. But speaking of moving on, I'll move on to the other topic. So let's stay on the topic of schools, right? I'm a little annoyed because I just recently had to pay one more bill for my son to finish up his 4-year education. I paid quite a sum of money for 2 online classes so he can finish up, meet all his graduation requirements. What I paid in those for 2 classes was more than I paid in 2 years at George Mason University in 1994, 95. Yes, I got it. That's 30 years ago. I understand that. College tuition has exponentially increased since that time. But what we're seeing now is starting to see a lot of a lot of talk about what's going on with public universities and such, and specifically the decline in numbers of universities, the decline in enrollment. And look, this has nothing to do, everyone's like, yeah, well, look what's going on in the college campuses. You got all these protests and demonstrations. And yeah, but that doesn't address why it's been declining over the last 10 to 15 years. And it doesn't address why the increase of tuition continues to go up. Andy and I talked about this probably last fall, talking about the housing crisis, talking about how housing prices were going up. Same thing with college tuition. It continues to go up. And for what purpose? Nowadays, bachelor's degrees are not as valuable as they used to be. You now need to get your MBA or your master's degree. You may need additional professional certifications. I work a lot of information security. I do a lot of work in that space. Bachelor's degree is not as important as some of these technical certifications. I'd rather know that the individual has the ability to pass accredited courses. Now, look, there's issues with those as well. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I think a lot of people are questioning the value of a 4-year college education, especially when you realize that you're walking away with $200,000 in debt. And that's not even, going to Harvard or going to the Ivy League or anything like that. That's your if you're an out-of-stater, like my son went to South Carolina and my other son went to Virginia Tech. We weren't in-state tuition for any of those. That's $50,000 right there. So you're looking at $200,000 in college loans if you don't get anything over a 4-year period, and which accounts to almost $800,000 if you're taking out the loan and you don't pay it up straight. I mean, who can afford that's mortgage payments, right? That's a mortgage payment that you've got to go through on top of everything else. And you're expecting some of the young folks to come out and then they got to pay the cost of high prices for housing as it is, higher food prices. A lot of these things continue to spiral, and you look and say, what did that 4-year college education get me? Well, we had a good football team, or we had a great basketball team. I enjoyed the parties that we went to, but does it carry the same value as it used to? I honestly, I don't know if it did. Look, I enjoyed my 4 years at George Mason University. I had a great experience. We had a sucky basketball team, no football team, nothing. But I had I developed great friends. Obviously, Andy and I met in college. And so and I met my wife in college. And so, look, those are great experiences for me. And I feel like I got the most out of my education there. But I don't know if that's always the case. And too often you have individuals who get a degree in something, but then they go and work in a completely different field. So a lot of people are challenging that, and you just can't afford that. You couple that all with what's going on in the sports world within these colleges, and you're seeing, look, I mean, I talked about this NIL thing, and this is a really big deal that's going on right now. And there's a big antitrust case going on. It's really going to change the way college athletics is being managed to basically now a big business model. Obviously, we know the history, right? Amateur athletes in college, you can't get paid. We know boosters were paying athletes. You can just go look at Shaq interviews or something where he talks about how much money he actually made. You look at, Reggie Bush just recently got his Heisman Trophy back, but it was taken away from him because his family was paid a certain amount of money. You've heard the stories about Jim Harbaugh buying pizza for people and then he gets suspended for 3 games. I mean, there is so much bullshit NCAA rules that finally are working for the favor of the student athlete. And again, I'm using those quotes, those air quotes, the student athlete. Look, I mean, we've seen this play out time and time again. And so now then they have the NIL. States said, hey, look, the NCAA fucking sucks. And so we're going to allow students to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. And this goes back to a Charles O'Bannon case in which he was challenging that he didn't get money for his name, image, and likeness, and the way that the schools were making money off of his jersey numbers, or college video game programs were making money off of his name, image, and likeness. So states like Florida, Texas, some of these other states just started saying, hey, look, we're going to allow this in our state. And so that opened up the floodgates because now people started paying it. And then other states followed because the NCAA fucking sucks, right? And so they said, we can't trust you to govern. You're making billions off of these kids. They're allowed to make some money. So that happened. And now you see the ramifications of that. One, transfers are out of control. And yes, that's regarding to more opening around the transfer portal. But you also have now, hey, you're not playing your stud 5-star quarterback from wherever, you sat the bench your freshman year. Well, here, if you come here, you're going to be the starter. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you $2 million. People like Arch Manning, unbelievable recruit, connected to the Manning family, obviously, went to Texas. He sat the bench all last year, maybe played a handful of snaps. But I mean, it's great. Just go Google what Arch Manning was driving around with last year, and the money that he made from riding the pine. but so now the college athletes are able to benefit of this. Now, not every college athlete is benefiting, but there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money off of this. And again, it is challenging their decisions to, do I go pro where I will make the league minimum in my first couple of years under a rookie contract, or do I stay here and I can continue to make millions of dollars? So that's going to be an interesting element to go through. But now you have this antitrust lawsuit going on, in which they're going to have to build in a pay scale for players. This is because the NIL is getting out of control. Now they have to build. They're going to build in this pay scale for players, and we'll see how that works out. But again, you can see what is happening. College tuition costs are going up. Why is it? Because you're getting a better education? Or is it because you're paying for your sports programs? You have all these colleges and universities now who have NIL collectives where, hey, I know you paid $50,000 a year to come here. I know you're paying $200 for a ticket to watch our games. I know you're, and look, am I exaggerating a little bit on some of this? Yeah, but I'm trying to make a point. Okay, so just go with me. You're paying $200 a ticket to come here, to go to our games. But now I need you to pay more money because we need to pay to keep our players here, keep our best of the best here, so we can continue to wave the flag of our school and do great things. You heard Nick Saban rail about this after the loss that they had. The people were coming up and saying to him, not how do I get better for next year? How do I make it to the league? How much are you going to pay me to stay here? That kind of discussion. And that's exhausting. Look, like you have to re-recruit your players every year. I wouldn't want it either. And so you gotta deal with that kind of stuff. So I think colleges and universities are in a really perilous situation. And oh, by the way, now you have these protests and demonstrations of, hey, look, if I'm a parent of Columbia and SNL did a great skit of this, and my kid was going to get expelled because they sat on a fucking lawn in a tent, I'm kicking their ass. I mean, because that's $80,000, I'm sure, of money that is going out of your pocket, and so that they can get expelled for something. And oh, by the way, it's going to have an impact on their next career. Why'd you get expelled from Columbia? Why'd you move schools? Oh, you were at Columbia? Were you during those demonstrations? Oh, interesting. I'm not going to hire your ass. And I think it's just going to be one of those things where those consequences are going to continue to build up for those colleges and universities. And I'm not surprised that they're taking such a hard stand on a lot of these things. Yes, the protesters and demonstrations are doing some of there is some violent activity there. And look, it is going to go away when everybody has to go home for the summer, right? Some of that is going to start dying down. But I got to tell you, like, there's a crisis with these universities saying, how do we maintain enrollment? How do we maintain all of this money that we've been bringing in? And oh, by the way, I just fired my football coach 2 years after I fired my other football coach. We're on the hook for their buyouts. Like, where's this money coming from? Oh, we'll just suck the parents dry some more. Okay, so there's a rant there. I'm sorry I went really long on that one, but it's really pissing me off, especially since I had to write some more checks. Okay, so last topic here, and I got a couple minutes to go through, but last topic here, I want to talk about professional, or actually we can talk college or professional coaching. I'm not sure why you want to do it anymore. So yesterday, the Phoenix Suns fired their coach, Frank Vogel, after... they won 49. I think they won 49 games or something like that. They lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got swept. Andy and I talked about Ant Edwards earlier. The guy's awesome, and he just took it to him. But look, Kevin Durant's old. Bradley Beal is broken, and Devin Booker was also injured. But they're not going to keep up with Anthony Edwards. I'm sorry, this guy's just taking it to him and just shoving it in their face. But Frank Vogel gets fired because they underperformed somehow. And then and this is 2 years after he got fired from the Lakers, after he had won them a championship earlier, because they underperformed, or apparently underperformed, because the team made bad mistakes. The team, the ownership, brought in Bradley Beal. He only played, I don't know, maybe he played 30 games this year. He's getting paid $50 million a year to suck. And he had nothing. Devin Booker's a good player. I like him. Kevin Durant, I don't know if you know this, but in the last, I think since 2010 or maybe it's 2015, Kevin Durant's had 8 coaches. And yeah, some of it's because he moved from Oklahoma City to Golden State to the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, and then to Phoenix. But here's the deal: like, he got Steve Nash fired, he got his coach from last year fired. Now he's got another coach from this year fired. So, like, is the problem the coach, or is the problem dealing with temperamental superstar players? And look, I get it. You're paying them a ton of money. But are we not going to try to hold the players accountable for some of this? Yes, the easy answer is that. But the players have to perform. And if they're gonna be told to do things that they don't want to do, and then they're just going to run to the owner because they make the most money on the team, I don't know if that's a good business model for your long-term success. The Phoenix Suns, moving forward, because they traded for all of these players, they don't have a draft pick. In clarification, NBA, there's only 2 rounds of drafts, right? So there's only 2 rounds of the draft. They don't have a draft pick a first or second round draft pick until 2030. 2030. They've mortgaged everything for an aging Kevin Durant. I'm beginning to think his legacy continues to go down every year when he continues to try to force himself out of situations that he put himself into, by the way. Try to fire coaches, and then everybody else, nobody's holding Kevin Durant accountable. It is what it is. But why would you want to go into coaching these days other than to say, okay, well, at least they'll pay me a lot of money. They'll fire me. They're still on the hook to pay me. I don't know. So it is what it is. I think it's just a challenging environment for coaching these days because you have this player empowerment time. At what point is the pendulum going to swing back and say, hey, I get it. We didn't have, the players didn't have a whole lot of empowerment before. We gave them too much now, but shouldn't we expect them to actually, listen to the coach? Shouldn't we bring in coaches or players shouldn't we bring in players that are coachable, that are willing to learn? Look at Ant Edwards. I'm telling you, like, this guy is so impressive to just watch this guy. And he's got Rudy Gobert on his team. He's got Cat on his team. And both of those, like Cat had been in Minnesota for years before Anthony Edwards got there. And, look, he's done what he needed to do. He's brash. He's young. But he backs his play up, and he doesn't do anything disrespectful, and he listens to his coach. Shouldn't we be bringing in more players like that instead of just focusing on, this guy's a superstar player, we can make it work? Maybe he can, but maybe you should side with your coaches more often than not. So, all right, ranting is over. Look, I did my best without Andy. It's always better with Andy here, but I'm looking at my coffee and I'm realizing I need to get some in my system. So, everyone, we'll have a full group of pods next week. I'm looking forward to have Andy back next week. I didn't talk about RFK Jr.'s proposal to debate Trump. I'd like to hear Andy's view on this. I'm interested to see how many debates, if any, we're going to have this year. The Trump trial continues. Steamy details about Stormy Daniels, or maybe not steamy because it's fucking pathetic. But here we go. So, all right, everyone. Hope you have a great weekend. Andy, congratulations to your family on this big, exciting weekend. And we'll catch up with you next time.